All right. Hello, gamers. We are back adding something today in a new book to the LOFT project, Player Characterable Stuff. And our new book that we're getting into is Carcass Crawler number 2. So yesterday we finished Carcass Crawler number 1. We're not going to be in Carcass Crawler number 2 very long because there's only 2 things in it. So just today and tomorrow. Today we're adding the Phase Elf. So already we've talked about high elves and drow in this series, and tomorrow we're going to talk about wood elves. The phase elf is kind of different, kind of unusual, and the phase elf, well, goes through phases. What does that mean? Well, when you play an elf in BECMI or BX or whatever, that elf is like a fighter magic user. Now, if you play elf as a species, give them a regular character class, you could play an elf cleric, elf ranger, what have you. But if you play a phase elf as a phase elf species, they're a fighter magic user. And when they get up in the morning, they could be in their fighter phase or they could be in their magic user phase. And you decide each day which phase you're in. Now, as written here in Carcass Crawler number 2, the character's eyes actually change from solid white to solid black. So the eye color is for one phase or the other phase. In my imagination or the theater of my mind or whatever, I'm thinking it would be cool if the hair could also change color if you wanted for your character. It doesn't have to. So the phase elf example that we've got in our picture today, if you look at the facial features, I think that the ears at first look a little bit different, but I think, the hair is just covering more of the ears on one of them. But it's supposed to be the same elf. She's a phase elf in 2 different phases. So one of her phases is, black hair, dark eyes, and the other phase is white hair, blue eyes. So the character classes for the default phase elf is our fighter phase and magic user phase. If you wanted to play a phase elf with different character classes, you'd pick 2 different character classes. I mean, if you wanted to be something really crazy, you could be like an assassin with one class and a lawful good paladin with the other class. Now, that would be really split personality, which I guess I'll get into next. So if you imagine a culture or a people or a society of elves that were like this, the phase elves. So apparently you'd have all kinds of extreme. Well, you'd have 2 extremes and all kinds of people in between. There would be phase elves on one extreme that would have completely different personalities to the point where they would have different names, different attitudes, different beliefs. It'd be almost like multiple personality disorder. Only for them it's not a disorder because for them it's normal. Or you could have phase elves that are not, where their 2 phases are not so separated. I mean, if that's not what you wanted to role play, if you like the idea, but you don't want to do, somebody that's basically 2 different mental characters sharing the same body, you could just basically have the same personality, just on some days I'm fightery, on some days I'm magic usery. But you could blend in any 2 character classes. You could be a cleric kineticist, you could be a thief ranger, whatever 2 character classes you wanted to that you wanted to put in. Now, if you were a regular default phase elf, then you'd get experience points every day that would just add to your total phase elf experience points if you were playing phase elf as a class. And that would be fighter mage or fighter magic user. If you were doing phase elf with anything else, with any other 2 classes, on days, this would be a little more bookkeeping on your part, but on days that you were your first class, you'd only get XP for your first class. And on days that you were your second class, you'd only get XP for your second class. Now, you don't have to switch. I mean, if the party really needs you to be a fighter, like if they've got magic covered and they just don't have enough tanks, I mean, you could stay in your fighter phase for like 10 days in a row. You just decide every day, which one you're going to be. Or the opposite is true. Like if one of your personalities is a cleric, and the party just has to have a healer, you could just choose cleric every day for a while until life changes, circumstances changes, and then you could develop that other class. So the phase elf is kind of exotic, kind of different, kind of unusual, where you You've got at least two different classes, possibly two different personalities. If you want to do that, you could be the same personality. You could have both personalities can have the same name, be the same person, and it's just some days I feel like this, some days I feel like that. It's just how my people are. They're the phase elves. But I was having fun thinking about what it would be like if there's a society of phase elves, and this is just normal, that everybody has two sides, and sometimes in some people the two sides are so different that they're like different personalities. I mean, imagine what it would be like to grow up in that society if one or both of your parents was like that. Like if both your parents were like that, you'd have like four parents. Like, yeah, phase elves would definitely be weird. But yeah, they're an option. And tomorrow we'll talk about the Wood Elves. If you'd like to play with us, we've got links in the doodly-doo below. And there is no waiting. There is no waiting. It came to my attention just this morning that we are not the only tabletop MMO in the world. There is at least one more. I thought there might be. The world's a big place. The internet's a big place. I wouldn't have been surprised if there wasn't another one. But I checked out that other one right now. Nothing against them in terms, like I hardly know them. Like I just looked at them online, so I can't really judge them. The only thing that I've seen is they have a waiting list to play. We do not. So without, talking about them or doing any judgy things or anything more than what I could just see right there on their webpage, we don't have a waiting list. So come play with us. Links in the doodly-doo below. We've got a DM available, in the central time zone from 6 p.m. to midnight nightly. So in the meantime, I'll see you around the game table.